Welcome. Welcome and greetings to Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary Deans gathered to present a new series. We're calling our Wisdom Series, and it's a four-part overview of the first year of studies from our students back in the day when we had on the ground. But this is just a glimpse of the different religions that we found so enticing that I was gonna say our children, our students, they're like our babies, aren't they? It's like we gave birth to them. Like our students really love certain aspects of these different teachings. And so we're going to bring those to you, and we're going to bring them every other week for the next four parts. And we're doing this during a very sacred time because this is the second week of February, and there are two major religions that have a concentration of prayer and introspection. And those are in Christianity, starting the Lenten season, and in the Islamic tradition, starting Ramadan. And so we give honor and praise to those, and we look forward to moving into just some highlights of the religions in four parts that we taught at Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary. And I'd like to introduce and ask my co-host, co-dean, co-founder of Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary, Reverend Dr. Grace Telesco.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Reverend Laurie, Rev Lo. Let's start with a prayer. And so I'm going to copy what you, I'm not going to copy you. I'm going to, they say imitation is the highest form of flattery. So you taught us about putting your hand on your heart. We put our hand on our heart space and we connect to a power greater than us, creator of all, source of life. You're known by so many sacred names. We pause today in gratitude for each other, for Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary, for the wisdom of the first peoples, the people who taught us to walk gently upon the earth. May we remember that the land is not ours to own, but is a living relative that we honor and protect. May our waters run clean, may the winds carry healing, and may the fires within us burn with compassion and courage. Guide us today during our sacred conversation to listen deeply and listen to the elders, listen to one another and to the quiet voice of the earth herself. And in humility and respect for all these sacred paths, we give thanks and we say, Amen, 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 Aho, Ashe, blessed be. So it is. Om Shanti Shanti.
Thank you for that beautiful prayer. Dean Grace, it was a 2-year course of study. It was a lot of information, and we held our students to a high standard. The first year was rituals, prayers, religion, and the energetic works of many of the religions that we covered. And the second year was ministerial duty. So there's just little bits and pieces that we can cover over this next series. So today we're covering the indigenous earth-based religions, and in 2 weeks we'll be covering the Eastern religions, and then after that, the Abrahamic religions, and then we'll wrap it up with New Thought and New Age. And then, as always, our 8th annual Mystical Stations of the Cross on April 3rd. So I'm looking forward to digging deep with you as we dig deep and yet scratch the surface.
Excellent, excellent. I love it. I love it. So I'm just going to spotlight you when you do your content, and then I'll spotlight myself.
Sure.
It's not actually allowing me to do that, interestingly. Okay, so then we won't be doing that. That's fine. We're going to talk about the indigenous major beliefs. So when we look at this indigenous faith practice, we're really talking about an earth-based medicine, right? And then the fact that there's one source of all that is, that the circle is sacred, that rituals connect us to each other and to our source, which is the earth. Really, it's earth-based and it's pagan in a lot of ways too. And I tell you a really quick funny story. When I first was dating Chris, but back, this is 28 years ago. I asked her what her faith was, and she said pagan. And I said, "Oh, don't say that. Don't say that like it's a bad thing."
Right, right.
Anyway, so we understand that the pagan faith practice is really centered around the fact that we're all connected, that the circle is sacred, and that divine intelligence is in the land, that there's information in the earth and in the stars and in the moon. So everybody knows that, kind of like, as far as like America is concerned, there's the Native American, and that would include North and South America. Some people get twisted and they think America is only North America, but it's not true, actually.
Right.
So
No.
what I'm talking
Bad
about,
Bunny.
right? That's right, Bad Money. Love him.
Hmm.
Downloaded all of his music, basically, like in love with this guy. So Native American, and what I'm about to give it as an example are really North American: Lakota, Sioux, Ojibwe, Cherokee, Shoshone, all of that. And they have different names for their god, their source. Great Spirit, Great Mystery, Creator, kind of the umbrella term. But then there's, for each of the different nations, there's different names: Great Mystery, Wakatakan, um, Tam Apo, which is our father, right? So all of that is in the North American, Native American. And Dean Laurie is going to talk later about a little bit more of the South America and also the Caribbean piece. So, like, when we think about all these different faith practices, they do reside within culture too, and that's important, I think, to say that there's spiritual aspect, the belief aspect, but there's also kind of culture. And Dean Laurie is going to get into a lot more of that in a minute. But let me just kind of round it out with goddess, because we broke this up into that I would talk a little bit about Native American, Indigenous, and goddess, and then Dean Laurie is going to talk about African, ancestral, and then also the Mayan influence. So let me just finish up with goddess. Goddess is seeing source as female, the great mother in all her aspects, whether it be mother, maiden, crone. That the moon is very important because it's with cycles, and it's very central to their belief system. And Dean Laurie, I know you do the full moon ritual every month, and so you're really connected in a very strong way to the moon and the cycles of the moon. The goddess, also the goddess religion or spiritual practice, if you will, and there's a little bit of Wicca in there too. But like we said, this is tip of the iceberg stuff. You could talk about goddess for like 2 terms, 2 semesters, a whole full year of talking about the goddess. And there's lots of different aspects and lots of different spiritual practices and beliefs. We're just kind of like given a very general overview. Like Dean Laurie said, there's 2 years here that we're putting into what? 30 minutes. How do you do that, right? That's crazy. But some of the rituals in the Native American is the medicine wheel, is the talking circle, is the talking stick, the vision quest, the dance and drumming, and also the sweat lodge. In the goddess, there's circles, again, incantations, candles, crystal work, potions, and moon ceremonies. So I guess some people could say that Dean Laurie practices goddess/pagan ritual every month when she does her moon ceremony. And I would say, yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know what she would say, but let's see what she would say about that. And then she'll go into African in a second.
Sure. Well, as interfaith ministers, everything is a blend to me. So when we do our rituals, it's sort of like pagan meets cultural meets Native American, because we look at the Native American names that are associated with that particular moon cycle. And we look at also other cultures and how they respect and honor the moon. So it's definitely an interfaith perspective under the moon. And this year we're doing it 6 times a year, every other month, and you and I can both put contact information so people can find out more about what you do and what I do in our comment section. But thank you so much for that. And I think that the beautiful thing about the indigenous faith practices is that if we just take out that core, just like in mystic studies, if we just take out that core understanding, they're so similar because it's such a high reverence and respect for the earth, for the elements, for the ancestors, for the people who came before us, and for the people who are coming after, to set the stage for life as it continues, and also for life as it was and as it has passed. And So indigenous means the people of the earth. The indigenous people are the people who were here before colonization, before language as we know it, because there were languages specific to all of those tribes that you mentioned, and there's languages specific to the people that I'll be speaking of. So I'll begin by talking about African spirituality. And in case any of our alumni are listening, let me acknowledge that our priestess friend, advisor, and teacher, priestess Efunlayo Maxi was a hit. She was a star. I mean, every time she came, they loved her so much. It ended up being in two parts. We did African spirituality, and then at another time we did ancestral rituals. And so I'll just start with African spirituality and move more quickly into the ancestral piece of it, because that will take us also into the Latin indigenous people. So when we think about African spirituality, we look at how there is a connection to the divine through the ancestors who are in a realm that speak to us before we embody our physical self. And we make agreements. We make almost as if it is like the life path that we see, we decide on, we agree on, and we step into our bodies and then we forget. And we are challenged with the sacred tasks of our African ancestors. And I want to remind people of the very important piece of African studies in this United States, because we had a slave trade. We had people who were brought here against their will, and they maintained a deep faith to their Orishas, which would be the African saints. Their names were very different than what we might hear nowadays, because they had to change the names in order to accommodate the places where they were, which the place of horrific treatment, but they maintained their faith. They maintained their honoring. They maintained their praise and worship. They maintained their belief in a divine that was holding them to this earth experience for a little while. And to me, it's when you think back on those stories, it's just an amazing show of resilience and belief in the fact that no matter you can take my body, you can't take my faith, you can't take my soul, you can't take my heart. These people were horrifically treated. And so now in this country, African spirituality has reclaimed those names. And so we do hear Oshun, we do hear Shango, we do hear the names that were once used that can now be used again, because the African spirituality can be practiced without fear in this country. The very large part of where we concentrated our students' teaching was on the ancestral practices. And this is something that takes place every single day. A person who is practicing African spirituality wakes up every day and connects with their ancestors. And one of the things that Efunlayo did, we have show and tell here, she used to show us how to wake up our ancestors, because can you see my staff, my ceremonial
Yes.
staff? Back
Yeah.
in the day, you lived above your ancestors. People died, you buried them, and you built your home. And so in the morning, we would um, bring our staff to the ground and tap the ground and say our prayers, sing our songs. And whenever Lyle would teach us that, we would take a staff and we would go in circles and we would sing the songs that she taught us. And then many of us made our own staffs to honor our ancestors. And I have some combination here of a feather that was given to me by a dear friend who passed away, and some things of my grandmother's. And I tried to make it also representation of my ancestry, because it was such a wonderful remembering that every day we can connect with our ancestors, even if we're just remembering our parents who may have passed away before us. They are also our guides. They have entered into the realm of the mystic. So the ancestral honoring takes place on an altar. You create an altar for your ancestors. You may have pictures there. You also have offerings. It may be water and honey and some bread. There's different things that are used to represent the honoring of the ancestors and asking them to come in, candlelight, It's so many beautiful rituals that I do hope people follow up by looking more deeply into this. We adapted for ordination two rituals, and one was to call on the ancestors for permission to even begin. And we learned that from the African spirituality, that when we begin anything, and we begin a ceremony, we ask for permission so that we are centered. It's not of me, but it's through the divine that's working through me, and it's the ancestors who are giving me permission to do so. And then there's the pouring of libation. It's the way to honor now we've gone from honoring the ancestors to honor those who are present. And in the pouring of the libations, we call out the names of our ancestors, but also of the people who are present to create the symbolism of the beginning of bringing everyone together, all that is holy and sacred. The other thing that is done in African spirituality is divination, which is the casting. I have show and tell today. I had the ceremonial staff and the casting of these beads. How do you call these?
I can't see.
You can't see them?
No. What is it? Oh,
Cowrie?
shells. The shells?
The cowrie shells. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. But Efulai would often bring the shells and she would toss them. She would ask a question, she would toss them, and how they would land would lead us toward yes or no to proceed or to not. So they can either land upside or downside. And that's another thing that we used to do as part of our honoring of the ancestors and honoring of our task here on Earth by doing the divination.
I'm gonna just interject two really quickly, like
Sure.
just again to honor Efenlio and what she's taught us.
Yeah.
So in our house, we have we happened to find a house that had like this little alcove, or is it an alcove? It almost looks like a closet, but it isn't. It doesn't have doors on it, so it's just this like little niche, and we have our ancestor altar there. So we have my ancestors and Chris's on one side and mine on the other. And in the morning, we light a candle, ring the bell, and we thank them for everything that we have and ask them for assistance. So it's something that it's not a fad or a trend. It's more like, wow, Efenlio, through the practice and teachings of African, Yoruban, ancestral practices, she really she planted a seed. And I if she's watching this, I want her to know that everything that she said mattered so much that we incorporated it into our spiritual practice.
We certainly did, and it was a great influence. And one of the other things she taught us is that you take your altar with you everywhere you go. That we have this altar at home, and I have little mini altars throughout the house. I think if the average person comes to my house, they might not realize that that's my ancestral altar or that's an honoree of this, that, or the other thing, because it's kind of subtle, it kind of blends in. But she said, take your altar with you everywhere you go. And so I wear this wristband. It says I rest in God, because my altar, my main concentration is in A Course in Miracles. And so this is a quote from A Course in Miracles. So I don't carry my book everywhere I go, but I carry this saying. You can wear beads that honor on your wrist or on your neck. You can wear beads that remind you in the course of the day that, oh, I am not only of this earth, I am also of the divine. Right. And my altar is here. I can put my hand right on it and take a moment and say, I rest in God, because I brought my altar with me and it's with me everywhere I go.
Speaking of the altar around your neck, she taught us that Babaluaye, which is one of the Orishas, is meant to help ward off disease. And later on, you're going to talk about Santería a little bit, I guess, right? I'm thinking, right? So when you think about Babaluaye as the Orisha, the kind of counterpart, the Latin Catholicism counterpart-ish is Saint Lazaro. So since COVID, I not only am I vaccinated up the wazoo, I believe in vaccinations, sorry, but besides my booster, I never leave the house without my Babaluaye necklace around my neck.
Yes, you gave me one, and I don't happen to have that for show and tell. If you
Oh,
want me,
too bad.
it's
I
close
can't.
by.
No,
But
it's not. I got to go all the way in the other rooms.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Yes, I wear mine also, and thank you for that. It's a beautiful necklace, and we have our prayer beads. There's things that we carry with us because I think also as interfaith ministers, and with things in the world, we can get distracted and upset, and sort of drawn into that. And it's nice and helpful, and probably essential even to have those reminders close to us, whether it's
yes,
hanging from the rearview mirror or around your neck, or in my case, on my arm. And also a ring. I wear a ring on my right hand. It's my daily vows, just a reminder that I have vows. So it's kind of like I have a whole church right here on my on my right side.
yeah, yeah, awesome.
So you mentioned Santeria. So I want to say something about that. We find so much similarity between the Santero and the African spirituality. Of course, there's a language difference, and Santero was born of the Yoruban influence in Cuba. We see it in Puerto Rico, Bolivia, Peru, Venezuela, in most of the Latin American countries. You'll find people who are still that's their primary religion. They might say they're Catholic and they're Santeria, like they're closet Santeria, because it's always still something that, unless you're living in a specific neighborhood, it's still frowned upon in some places because there's people see it just as animal sacrifice and not as the true depth of religion and spirituality and connection to the divine as it is. Again, remembering that indigenous means the original people of the earth. And in terms of the names, one of the ones that we use a lot in Spanish is Santa Barbara. And Santa Barbara is Shango. So in the African tradition, it's Shango. In the Santeria, we say Santa Barbara, and we say Santa Barbara bendito. We're asking to be purified, to take what is el malo, what is bad in me, and toss it into the ocean. And it's funny because the ocean has a goddess, a Yoruban goddess, right? We have Yemayá, who's the goddess in the ocean. She takes what we send and transforms it. And in Santeria, we would say Santa Barbara. So it's
Mm.
interesting to see how it all comes together. And in the interest of time, I want to talk about, because you talked about mine, I want to talk a little bit more about uh, Latin culture, but now ancient Mexican culture. I happen to be Puerto Rican and Mexican, so they both resonate deeply in me. So in the Mexican culture, there is something called Day of the Dead and Dia de los Muertos. Now, this is sometimes misunderstood as an English-speaking Catholic spin on All Souls Day, because they both happen at the same time. All Souls Day is November 1st or 2nd,
Second.
and second, and Day of the Dead is 1st and 2nd. So they blend. So a lot of times, because there's been such a modernization of indigenous religions due to colonization and Spanish influence in Latin countries specifically, because the people weren't speaking Spanish, they were speaking the language of their indigenous people. So it's actually the Aztecs, not the Mayans. This is also a misconception. This is a 3,000-year uh, practice, which is to honor the lady of the underworld, the goddess. And I'm gonna tell you her name, but I'm not gonna spell it because if I spell it, it might make your eyes hurt if you saw it in writing. But her name is Mictecacewatu. Mictecacewatu. I'll put it the spelling in the comment section because it is an Indian name. It's not a Spanish name. It's an Indian name, an honoring of the dead. So the Spanish were quite horrified when they came to Mexico and saw that in August, not in November, but that the people at the time used to exhume their dead and use their bones once a year in rituals because they had a deep belief and continue to have a belief that dying is not the end. All we see now are bones. This is not the truth of who the person was. And so they would decorate the skulls. I know it sounds, they would decorate the skulls and they would put them on altars and they would honor the dead with the understanding that you haven't really gone anywhere. The essence of who you are is still here with us now. And so, of course, that was, that was debated, and probably when I say debated, I mean slaughtered out of people to no longer do that. And so as they modernized to accommodate colonization, they moved it to November 1st and 2nd and use cakes instead, cakes and paintings. And so once again, show and tell. Here's my shirt that I wear once a year for 2 days. This is a typical picture of the Day of the Dead. It's a decorated skull. And it's to make light of death, to say, death, you have no control over me. You cannot take the essence, you cannot take my soul. And that's why the people exhume the bones of their loved ones. I want to recommend for anybody who might be interested a really cute movie called Coco. It's a Pixar presentation, and it's about a little boy who wants to be a musician, and he goes on a journey. And in the journey, since it's the Day of the Dead, he accidentally falls into the underworld, and he goes through the realization of what it really means to be in the underworld. And it's a beautiful story, and it's very sweet, and it gives you a sort of a relaxed understanding of what it means to truly honor the dead, with reverence and with joy. And I want to emphasize also that people who are native, indigenous to their area still exist. There are people in Puerto Rico. The original people of Puerto Rico were called Taino, Taino. They still exist. The Taino still exist, but they're sort of tucked away, like the Miccosukee here he is here, and different Native American people are here because of the colonization and the forced Catholicism and language. They have found their own way to survive, but in very small numbers. But I want to honor those people, and I want to honor what they represent. Certainly in my heritage, the Taino people, the Aztec people, the Mayan people. And I want to encourage people we're going to put little gems in the comment sections of different words, different things that we've discussed here today, so that they can look further, dig deeper, and hopefully be as taken and in awe of the beauty of the indigenous people.
Great. Okay. So, are you doing that or am I doing that?
I can do it. I'll do it in comments. Once you upload
Okay.
the video,
Okay.
I'll put all
Okay.
the
Gotcha,
I'll put
gotcha,
everything in
gotcha.
the comment section.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, well, let me just talk for a minute about where we're going.
Sure.
So, one of the things that we're going to be doing next time in 2 weeks, and as Dean Laurie said, we'll drop this on actually Ash Wednesday, also the first day of Ramadan.
Yes.
And so that kind of coincides with each other, which I think is pretty cool and awesome. So we'll be doing that. In 2 weeks, we'll be looking at Eastern, and that's my favorite because that's my faith practice is really rooted in the Eastern tradition of Hinduism and Vedanta. So we'll be
Yes.
talking about that in 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. And yeah, so that's it, Dean Laurie. I think that we're good.
We're good. We're ready to wrap it up. And thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you. Let's end with a prayer and honoring a nice deep breath together, hands on our hearts, and give thanks to the great spirits of the Native American, to the great goddesses of Indians, to the mothers and daughters of the ancients who watch over us, the ancient African spirituality, the ancient Latin spirituality. They watch over us, they guide us, and we give thanks for that. All that is holy and sacred is embodied in who they were, who they are, and as a result, who we are. We give thanks and we look forward to being guided further in wisdom and compassion for all that and for so much more. Amen, 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 ashe, aho.
Bye, everybody.
God bless.